Standing in the shadow of the Great Pyramid or tracing your fingers along the perfectly fitted stones of an Inca wall, it's impossible not to wonder, how did they do it? These ancient builders had no cranes, no laser levels, no computer-aided designs, yet their creations have stood for thousands of years, defying time and gravity with almost supernatural precision. The truth is, their secrets weren't magic, they were mastery, clever, refined techniques honed through trial and error, passed down like sacred knowledge, and executed with a level of ingenuity that still leaves modern engineers scratching their heads. Today, we're unraveling 22 of history's most astonishing architectural hacks, methods so brilliant they border on the unbelievable. Picture this: massive stones weighing tons, moved across miles of rugged terrain without wheels, then lifted into place with nothing but ropes and ramps. Or consider walls so tightly fitted, you can't slide a sheet of paper between the seams, all carved by hand. These weren't just feats of strength, they were triumphs of physics, geometry, and sheer human creativity. Civilizations from Egypt to Mesoamerica cracked codes we're still deciphering today, turning limitations into opportunities. And here's the thing, their tricks weren't just about building big. They were about building smart, using the land itself as a tool, harnessing natural forces, and even playing with perception to make the impossible real. This is more than a history lesson. It's a testament to what happens when human imagination meets necessity. Every structure we'll explore holds a hidden story of innovation, a lightbulb moment chiseled into stone. Some techniques were so effective, we've only recently rediscovered them, while others remain mysteries wrapped in enigma. So if you've ever stared at an ancient monument and thought, how on earth did they pull that off? You're about to get your answers, from counterintuitive quarrying methods to structures that seem to defy logic. We're diving deep into the minds of history's greatest builders. Ready to see the world through their eyes, let's begin. High in the Andes, the walls of Machu Picchu tell a silent story of precision that borders on obsession. The Inca didn't just stack stones, they made them sing. Each block was carved with such exactness that when placed together, they locked like puzzle pieces, interlocking so tightly that earthquakes couldn't shake them apart. What's even more astonishing, they did it all without mortar, metal tools, or even the wheel. Instead, they relied on patience, bronze chisels, and an almost sacred attention to detail. The secret wasn't just skill, it was strategy. Workers would shape a stone, test its fit against its neighbor, then shave off tiny flakes until the contact was flawless. They used sand as natural sandpaper, rubbing surfaces for hours until the seams vanished. But here's the genius part: the stones weren't uniform rectangles. Many were irregular polygons, their angles designed to distribute weight and resist shifting. It's like building a wall of keys, each one unique but together unbreakable. Modern engineers have tried to replicate this technique, and even with lasers and precision tools, matching the Incas' perfection is nearly impossible. Their walls weren't just strong, they were alive, flexing subtly during tremors instead of cracking. Some theories suggest they used simple but brilliant methods, like hanging plumb lines or filling gaps with clay models to plan fits before carving. Others believe they mastered a form of stone knitting, where blocks were shaped to interlock under pressure like a 3D jigsaw. The real marvel, this wasn't reserved for temples or palaces. Even everyday storehouses and terraces were built with the same care, proving the Inca saw craftsmanship as a universal language. Today, those walls still stand not as ruins, but as monuments to a truth we often forget: perfection doesn't require technology. It demands vision, time, and the humility to learn from the rock itself. The Pantheon's dome has weathered earthquakes, wars, and 2,000 years of rain, yet it stands untouched by time, while modern concrete structures crumble after mere decades. What did the Romans know that we've only just begun to rediscover? Their concrete wasn't just strong, it was alive. Mixing volcanic ash from the Pozzuoli region with lime and seawater, they triggered a chemical reaction that defies logic. Instead of weakening, their material grew tougher over centuries, thanks to a rare mineral called aluminous tobermorite. Here's where it gets even wilder. When tiny cracks form in Roman concrete, water seeping in reacts with the volcanic ash to create new crystalline structures, essentially healing the damage. It's like the material has its own immune system. Modern scientists only confirmed this self-repairing property in the last few years, using advanced microscopes to watch the process in action. Meanwhile, the Romans were exploiting it 2 millennia ago, building harbors that resisted corrosive saltwater and aqueducts that outlasted empires, the real kicker. We still haven't perfectly reverse-engineered their recipe. Modern concrete relies on steel reinforcements that rust, while Roman builders used no metal at all. Their secret lay in humility. They didn't fight nature, they collaborated with it. Volcanic ash wasn't just a binder, it was a partner, reacting with seawater to create something greater than the sum of its parts. Even the way they poured it was genius. Layering the mix with chunks of rubble, they created a sort of stone skeleton that distributed weight like a natural rock formation. What if we rebuilt our cities with this knowledge? Imagine seawalls that reinforce themselves, or bridges that grow stronger with each passing century. The Romans didn't just leave us ruins, they left a challenge. In a world obsessed with speed and cheap materials, their concrete whispers a different truth. Sometimes the best way forward is to learn from the past. The Great Pyramid of Giza doesn't just dominate the skyline, it defies the very idea of human limitation. Of all its mind-bending features, one stands out as quietly revolutionary. Its alignment to true north with a precision that would make modern engineers sweat. We're talking a deviation of just 0.05 degrees, a margin so slim. It's like hitting a bullseye from 5 miles away. And here's the kicker. They pulled this off 4,500 years ago without GPS, without magnetic compasses, without even knowing the Earth was round. So how did they do it? The answer lies in their obsession with the night sky. Archaeologists believe Egyptian surveyors used the stars as their blueprint, tracking the slow dance of circumpolar constellations like Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. These stars never dip below the horizon, circling the north celestial pole like silent sentinels. By marking their positions at key intervals and bisecting the angles between them, they could pinpoint true north with jaw-dropping accuracy. But here's what's even wilder. They didn't just observe the stars, they turned astronomy into a precision tool. Some theories suggest they used simple plumb bobs and sighting rods to create artificial horizons, while others point to shadow casting techniques during equinoxes. This wasn't just technical prowess, it was cosmic poetry. To the Egyptians, aligning the pyramid with celestial north wasn't just about engineering bragging rights. It tied the structure to the eternal, making it a physical bridge between earth and heaven. The pyramid's corners mirror the cardinal directions so perfectly that when you stand before it, you're not just facing a building, you're facing a compass rose carved in stone. Modern attempts to replicate this alignment using ancient methods reveal just how painstaking the process was. Even tiny errors in star measurements would compound over distance, meaning their calculations had to be flawless from the first chisel strike. And let's not forget the human element. Imagine the patience required, nights spent staring at the heavens, generations refining techniques, all to ensure a single structure would echo the harmony of the universe. Today, with satellites and laser levels, we take such precision for granted. But the pyramid whispers a humbling truth. Sometimes the most advanced technology isn't hardware. It's the relentless pursuit of perfection, one star at a time. Clap your hands at the base of the temple of Kukulkan, and something extraordinary happens. The stone steps sing back to you. Not just any sound, but the unmistakable chirp of the Quetzal bird, a creature sacred to the Maya, woven into their myths and rituals. This wasn't some happy accident of architecture. Every step, every angle, every inch of that pyramid was calculated with a precision that would make modern acousticians pause. The Maya didn't just build for the eye, they composed for the ear, turning stone into an instrument of the divine. The secret lies in the staircase's dimensions. Each step is just shallow enough, each rise just high enough that sound waves bounce off them in a cascading rhythm. When a hand clap hits those surfaces, the echoes overlap at specific frequencies, creating that haunting Quetzal call. It's physics disguised as magic, a sonic illusion so perfect it feels alive. But here's what's even more remarkable. This effect only works when you stand directly in front of the temple. Move even slightly to the side and the spell breaks. That level of precision suggests the Maya didn't just understand sound, they mastered it, using architecture to bend acoustics to their will. Scholars believe this wasn't just spectacle. The Quetzal's call was likely part of ceremonies, a way to summon the spirit of the bird during rituals. Imagine the impact, a priest clapping his hands and suddenly the temple itself answering with the voice of the sacred. It's a reminder that for ancient cultures, buildings weren't just shelters. They were portals designed to blur the line between the human and the divine. And Chichen Itza isn't alone. Across Mesoamerica, other sites whisper with hidden acoustics. At the Mayan palace of Palenque, certain corridors amplify whispers to eerie clarity, as if the walls themselves are eavesdropping. In Peru, the ruins of Chavín de Huanta feature conch shell trumpets that, when blown in specific chambers, create disorienting echoes, perhaps used to induce trance states. These weren't quirks of construction. They were deliberate tools, proof that ancient architects thought in layers, designing spaces that spoke to all the senses. What's humbling is realizing how much we might still be missing. If a simple hand clap can reveal one secret, what other sonic marvels lie dormant in these ruins, waiting for the right listener? The Maya didn't leave behind textbooks on acoustical engineering. They left puzzles in stone, inviting us to listen closely, not just with our ears but with our curiosity. In the blistering heat of the Persian desert, where summer temperatures could melt stone, ancient architects didn't just endure the climate, they outsmarted it. Their solution, windcatchers or badgers, soaring towers that turned scorching breezes into cool relief, long before the hum of air conditioners filled our homes. These weren't just decorative spires, they were feats of fluid dynamics, harnessing the wind's natural movement to create a passive cooling system so effective, it's still used in some regions today. The genius lay in their simplicity. A windcatcher's tall, open vents faced prevailing winds, capturing even the faintest breeze and funneling it downward into the building's interior. But here's where it gets clever. As the cool air sank, it pushed warmer air up and out through opposite vents, creating a continuous flow without a single moving part. Some designs took it further, channeling air over underground water reservoirs or moist clay walls, where evaporation dropped the temperature even more, a primitive but brilliant form of swamp cooling. In palaces like Yazdaulatibad Garden, windcatchers could chill entire rooms to comfortable levels, even as the desert outside baked at over 120 degrees. What's astonishing is how tailored these systems were. builders didn't just slap up identical towers, they adapted each one to local conditions. Coastal versions captured humid sea breezes, while desert designs prioritized dry airflow. Some even had adjustable vents to control the direction and speed of the wind, like ancient thermostat dials, and the materials sun-baked mud bricks, which naturally insulated against heat, proving sustainability wasn't a modern invention but a survival strategy. Modern engineers have only recently caught up to the elegance of this idea. Today's wind towers in green buildings owe their DNA to these Persian innovations. Yet, while we rely on energy-guzzling HVAC systems, the badgers stand as quiet reminders that sometimes the best technology doesn't fight nature, it dances with it. Imagine if more of our architecture embraced this wisdom, cities cooled not by grids and generators, but by the timeless whisper of the wind. When the Spanish conquistadors first laid eyes on Tenochtitlan, they thought they were dreaming, a glittering city of canals and gardens, floating like a mirage in the middle of Lake Texcoco. But this was no illusion. The Aztecs had pulled off one of history's most audacious urban experiments, building a metropolis on water, using nothing but reeds, mud, and sheer ingenuity. Their secret weapon, Chinampas' floating gardens so fertile, they turned a swamp into an agricultural powerhouse capable of feeding 200,000 people. These weren't just rafts piled with soil. Each Chinampa was a masterpiece of bioengineering. Workers wove sturdy mats from totora reeds, anchoring them to the lakebed with willow trees whose roots knitted into natural retaining walls. Layer by layer, they built up the islands with nutrient-rich silt dredged from the lake bottom, creating raised beds that never dried out or flooded. The genius touch, planting fast-growing aquatic plants around the edges, which decomposed into a self-renewing fertilizer. It was a closed-loop system, nature and nurture working in perfect sync. But the real magic was in the water itself. The canals between Chinampas acted like liquid highways, transporting crops directly to markets while doubling as temperature regulators. Water absorbed the sun's heat by day and released it at night, shielding tender plants from frost. And because the gardens were constantly irrigated from below, they yielded up to 7 harvests a year, a productivity rate that rivals modern hydroponics. Today, urban planners are rediscovering this ancient hack as a blueprint for climate-resilient cities. In places like Bangladesh and the Netherlands, where rising seas threaten farmland, researchers are testing Chinampa-inspired designs to grow food on floating platforms. Even more impressive, the Aztecs' foundation technique. By interlacing the lakebed with wooden pilings and compacted rubble, they created an artificial archipelago so stable, some original Chinampas are still in use after 5 centuries. What's humbling is realizing how little we've improved on their model. While we pour concrete into wetlands or pump water from overdrawn aquifers, the Aztecs thrived by embracing the lake, not conquering it. Their city wasn't built on solid ground, it floated on a lesson we're only now relearning. Sometimes the best way to rise above a challenge is to let it lift you. Dive into the depths of the Aegean Sea, where a corroded lump of bronze pulled from a shipwreck turned out to be one of history's most astonishing brain teasers. The Antikythera mechanism, no bigger than a shoebox, contained a maze of interlocking gears so precise, it could chart the dance of the stars centuries before Galileo pointed his telescope skyward. This wasn't just a calendar or a simple clock. It was a celestial calculator predicting eclipses, tracking Olympic cycles, and mapping the erratic path of planets with a sophistication that wouldn't be matched until the Industrial Revolution. What makes this device truly mind-bending is the engineering behind it. Microscopic scans reveal a system of at least 37 meshing bronze gears, some with teeth cut to exacting triangular profiles to minimize friction. The main gear alone had 223 teeth, a number directly tied to the Saros cycle, the 18-year pattern of solar and lunar eclipses. But here's the kicker: the Greeks didn't just replicate celestial motions, they corrected for them. One set of gears even modeled the moon's elliptical orbit, compensating for its speed variations with a pin and slot mechanism that functioned like an ancient analog differential equation. The implications are staggering. This level of precision machining suggests workshops bustling with lathes, files, and measuring tools far beyond what historians once believed possible in the 1st century BC. And the math, oh, the math. Inscriptions on the mechanism's fragments reference Babylonian eclipse theories and Greek geometrical theorems, proving its creators didn't just borrow knowledge, they synthesized it into something entirely new. Some scholars now argue it might have been the work of Hipparchus, the father of trigonometry, or an apprentice of Archimedes, whose lost writings hinted at similar devices. What's haunting is realizing how much we might have lost. Cicero wrote of a bronze sphere built by Archimedes that showed the heavens in motion. Could that have been an earlier prototype? The Antikythera mechanism survived only by accident, preserved in saltwater darkness while its peers vanished into time. Today, as we hold microchips in our palms, it's worth remembering that the spark of genius isn't bound by eras. 2,000 years ago, with no electricity, no calculus textbooks, and no precision lasers, a group of thinkers turned metal and curiosity into a mirror of the cosmos. The real question isn't how they built it, it's what else they built that we'll never know. Buried beneath the dust of millennia, the streets of Mohenjo-Daro hide a secret that would make any modern city planner nod in respect. A labyrinth of baked clay pipes so advanced they wouldn't look out of place in a 21st century metropolis. While medieval Europe tossed waste into open gutters and the Romans were still perfecting their aqueducts, the Indus Valley civilization had already cracked the code on urban sanitation. Every home, from the humblest dwelling to the grandest bathhouse, linked into a meticulously engineered sewer network that carried wastewater away with eerie efficiency. The brilliance wasn't just in the scale, it was in the details. Each pipe sloped at precise gradients to ensure gravity did the heavy lifting, while manhole covers allowed for routine maintenance. But here's the kicker: they built fail-safes into the system. Curved drains at street corners prevented clogs from debris, and settling pits filtered out solids before water reached the main channels. Some houses even had chutes directing waste directly from upper floors into the underground network, proving this wasn't just civic infrastructure, it was a way of life. What's truly staggering is the foresight behind it all. Archaeologists have found evidence of standardized brick sizes and uniform pipe diameters across the city, suggesting centralized planning on a level unseen until the industrial age. The Great Bath, a colossal public pool lined with waterproof tar, wasn't just a ritual space, it was the heart of a hydrological empire, fed by freshwater wells and drained by channels that kept the water pristine. Modern engineers have calculated that these systems could handle monsoon-level rainfall without backing up, a feat that still eludes some cities today. And unlike the Roman cloacae, which primarily served the elite, Mohenjo-Daro's sewers reached every neighborhood, hinting at a society that valued collective well-being over hierarchy. The lesson here isn't just about pipes and gradients, it's about vision, the kind that looks centuries ahead and whispers, "This is how civilization thrives." While we lay fiber optic cables and smart grids, the ghost of Mohenjo-Daro reminds us that the greatest innovations aren't always the loudest. Sometimes they're the ones quietly carrying away the waste, unseen but essential, beneath our feet. 2,000 years before modern seismographs, a bronze vessel sat in a Han Dynasty palace, its surface adorned with 8 sinuous dragons, each clutching a metal ball between its jaws. Below them, 8 bronze toads waited with open mouths, poised to catch whatever might fall. This wasn't ceremonial art, it was the world's first known earthquake detector, and its precision would put some modern instruments to shame. When tremors rippled through the earth, even from hundreds of miles away, the dragon's jaws would release a ball with uncanny accuracy, clattering into the toad facing the quake's epicenter. The genius of Zhang Heng's seismoscope lay in its deceptive simplicity. Inside the ornate vessel, a delicate pendulum hung suspended, calibrated to sway with the faintest seismic waves. But here's the stroke of brilliance: the pendulum didn't just move, it triggered a series of levers that amplified its motion, directing force to a single dragon's head. The design accounted for horizontal shaking without being fooled by nearby bumps or vibrations, a filtering technique modern seismologists still struggle to replicate mechanically. Historical records claim it once detected an earthquake so distant, officials dismissed the warning until messengers days later confirmed the devastation in a far-off province. What's even more remarkable is how little energy it required. Unlike today's power-hungry sensors, Zhang Heng's device harnessed the earthquake's own force to signal its presence, needing no external power. And those 8 dragons, they weren't just decorative. Arranged in cardinal and intercardinal directions, they turned the vessel into a compass for disaster, offering not just an alert but actionable intelligence. In an era when quakes were seen as divine omens, this invention dared to suggest something radical: that natural phenomena could be measured, understood, even anticipated. Modern reconstructions have proven the design works, though no original survives. Some engineers speculate hidden mechanisms, perhaps a system of counterweights or tilted channels, enhanced its sensitivity. Others argue the real magic was in the craftsmanship. The precision of the bronze casting and pendulum's balance might have been fine-tuned through years of trial and error. Whatever the secrets, the seismoscope stands as a testament to a truth we often forget. Innovation doesn't always mean complexity. Sometimes it's about listening, really listening, to the whispers of the earth, then building something elegant enough to translate them. Imagine if every tremor-prone region today had such devices, simple yet effective, dotting the landscape like silent sentinels. While we rely on satellites and algorithms, Zhang Heng's dragons remind us that sometimes the oldest solutions hold kernels of wisdom we've yet to fully reclaim. After all, progress isn't just about moving forward, it's about knowing when to look back. Long before Rome's Colosseum graced the skyline, a quieter revolution was unfolding in the sun-baked plains of Mesopotamia, where builders turned humble mud bricks into one of history's most enduring architectural secrets, the arch. While we often credit the Romans with perfecting arched structures, the truth is, Mesopotamian craftsmen were stacking and shaping bricks into graceful curves as early as 2000 BCE, creating vaulted ceilings and doorways that defied gravity with nothing but clay and clever geometry. The magic lay in their understanding of weight distribution. Unlike flat lintels that could crack under pressure, their barrel vaults essentially extended arches channeled loads outward and downward, letting walls bear the burden evenly. Picture a line of people passing heavy buckets hand to hand. The Mesopotamian arch worked similarly, dispersing stress along its curves so no single brick carried too much. But here's the real stroke of genius. They built these marvels with mud bricks, a material most of us would dismiss as fragile. By alternating the orientation of bricks and using bitumen as a natural mortar, they created structures that shrugged off time and tremors. What's even more impressive is how they scaled this idea. At sites like the ziggurat of Ur, vaulted passageways stretched dozens of feet, supporting massive terraces above. And unlike Roman concrete, which required precise formwork, Mesopotamian builders could erect these arches freestyle, adjusting as they went, a testament to their intimate knowledge of materials. Some vaults were so sturdy they survived millennia buried under shifting sands, emerging intact when archaeologists brushed away the dust. This wasn't just about strength, it was about possibility. The arch unlocked new ways to span space, letting Mesopotamians build grander temples, wider gates, and even underground drainage systems that predated Rome's famed cloacae. And that influence rippled far beyond their borders. Centuries later, when Gothic architects sought to build cathedrals that soared toward heaven, they stood on the shoulders of these ancient innovators, proof that revolution isn't always about inventing something new, but recognizing the potential in what's already there. The next time you walk under a vaulted ceiling or admire a bridge's graceful curve, remember, the silhouette above you began as a spark of brilliance in the minds of builders who saw strength not in stone alone, but in the power of a perfect curve. Imagine sailing across the North Atlantic under a sky so thick with clouds, the horizon vanishes, no sun, no stars, just an endless gray void. For most sailors, this would spell disaster. But the Vikings, they reached for a small, unassuming crystal. These Norse explorers didn't just brave the open ocean, they outsmarted it using a tool so clever, modern scientists only confirmed its effectiveness in the last decade, the Sunstone. This wasn't some mystical artifact, it was pure physics disguised as magic. Viking sagas mention a solarstein capable of revealing the sun's position even in fog or twilight. For centuries, historians dismissed it as legend until researchers realized certain crystals, like Iceland spar, a form of calcite, have a property called birefringence. When light passes through them, it splits into two beams. By rotating the stone until these beams matched in intensity, a navigator could pinpoint the sun's hidden location with startling precision, even when it was well below the horizon. Recent experiments put this theory to the test. Using replica sunstones on overcast days, pilots and sailors successfully plotted courses within 5 degrees of accuracy, enough to navigate from Norway to Newfoundland without a compass. But here's what's truly remarkable. The Vikings likely didn't just stumble upon this trick, they refined it. Some sagas describe holding the stone overhead and tracing light patterns on a marked surface, suggesting a systematic method honed through generations of trial and error. What's often overlooked is how this tool shaped history. While medieval Europe clung to coastlines, fearing the open sea, Viking longships crossed the Atlantic with nothing but a crystal and their wits. The Sunstone didn't just help them find new lands, it rewrote the rules of exploration, and it wasn't their only navigational hack. Combined with sun compasses or wooden discs that tracked shadows, and an intimate knowledge of wave patterns, bird flights, and even the color of seawater, Viking navigation was a masterclass in environmental literacy. Today, as we rely on GPS satellites that can fail or be jammed, the Sunstone whispers a timeless lesson. Sometimes the most reliable technology isn't the most complex. It's the one that listens to the world. The Vikings didn't conquer the Atlantic by fighting its mysteries, they learned to read them, turning a simple crystal into a window through the clouds. High in the sandstone cliffs of Mesa Verde, the ancestral Pueblones didn't just build homes, they choreographed them with the sun. These weren't random caves hollowed out for shelter, they were meticulously positioned solar calculators carved in stone. Every doorway, every window, even the angle of the walls aligned with celestial precision to create a natural thermostat that kept rooms cool in scorching summers and warm during frigid winters. Without thermometers or blueprints, they turned architecture into a dance with daylight. The key was in their obsessive tracking of the sun's journey across the sky. South-facing cliff dwellings were set just deep enough to block high summer rays while welcoming the low winter sunlight to seep into every corner. But here's where it gets brilliant. They didn't stop at simple overhangs. Some structures featured tiny, strategically placed windows that acted like sundials, casting beams onto interior markers to signal solstices or planting seasons. At Sun Temple, for example, a sliver of light pierces a specific corner only during the winter solstice, a celestial alarm clock etched into the rock. What's astonishing is the consistency of this knowledge across generations. From Chaco Canyon to Bandelier, distant communities shared this solar vocabulary, suggesting a deep cultural understanding passed down through oral tradition. Modern simulations using 3D modeling show their alignments weren't just close, they were exact, often within fractions of a degree, and the benefits went beyond comfort. By harnessing passive solar heating, they reduced reliance on firewood in a landscape where trees were scarce, turning sustainability into survival. Their techniques whisper a lesson we're relearning today. Contemporary architects studying Mesa Verde have borrowed these principles for modern passive solar homes, proving that ancient innovation doesn't age. The Pueblones didn't fight their environment. They listened to it, letting the rhythm of the seasons dictate their designs. While we fiddle with smart thermostats and energy-hungry HVAC systems, their silent stone calendars keep perfect time, a reminder that the best technology sometimes requires no moving parts, just moving shadows. In the heart of Cambodia's steamy jungles, where monsoon rains turn the earth to soup, Angkor's engineers faced a puzzle. How do you keep 1 million people supplied with clean water when every downpour threatens to choke your reservoirs with mud? Their answer wasn't just functional, it was a masterpiece of hydrodynamic artistry. Spiral wells, twisting like stone serpents into the earth, transformed the very problem of sediment into a self-cleaning solution. At first glance, these wells looked like ordinary staircases descending into darkness, but the genius was in their curves. Unlike straight shafts that let water rush in unchecked, the corkscrew design forced incoming water to slow its roll, literally. As monsoon runoff spiraled down the steps, heavier particles of silt and debris lost momentum, settling into specially designed collection pockets along the outer edges. By the time the water reached the central storage chamber at the bottom, it was remarkably clear, filtered not by screens or chemicals, but by pure physics. But the innovation didn't stop there. Archaeologists studying the wells at Angkor Thom found that the spiral's tightness varied by location. Tighter coils near the city center where water demand was highest, wider turns in suburban areas where flow rates could afford to be slower. This wasn't a one-size-fits-all system. It was a nuanced network calibrated to neighborhood needs. Some wells even featured overflow channels that redirected excess water during peak rains, preventing erosion while replenishing auxiliary tanks, an ancient example of integrated water management. What's truly staggering is the scale. Angkor's spiral wells weren't rare curiosities. They were the backbone of a hydraulic empire. Over 1,000 have been mapped so far, part of a system that included vast barrages, reservoirs, and canals spanning hundreds of square miles. Modern simulations show that during the dry season, these wells could draw up groundwater through capillary action, their stepped sides acting like wicks to maintain supply even as surface water vanished. Today, as cities grapple with aging water infrastructure, Angkor's spiral wells offer a quiet provocation. What if we stopped fighting nature's chaos and started working with its rhythms? While we build ever more complex treatment plants, these ancient engineers remind us that sometimes the clearest solutions come not from forcing water into submission, but from letting it find its own path, one graceful spiral at a time. Fire that refused to be extinguished, this was the nightmare facing any fleet daring to approach Constantinople's mighty sea walls. The Byzantines called it hygropa, liquid fire, but to their enemies it was simply terror incarnate. Picture a flaming jet arcing across the water, clinging to ships like molten tar, burning even as waves crashed over it. This wasn't ordinary fire. It was a chemical enigma so potent, its exact recipe died with the empire that wielded it. The secret likely lay in a volatile cocktail of petroleum siphoned from natural seeps near the Black Sea, mixed with resin or pitch to thicken it into a sticky slurry. But the real genius was in the delivery system. Bronze tubes mounted on Byzantine dromon ships pumped the substance under pressure, while operators shielded behind iron plates ignited it with a flame, creating a medieval flamethrower capable of spraying destruction over 100 feet. Some accounts suggest quicklime may have been added, reacting violently with water to generate intense heat, ensuring the fire reignited even when doused. What made Greek fire truly unstoppable was its psychological edge. Imagine being a sailor watching the horizon glow with unnatural flames that danced atop the waves, creeping toward your hull with relentless hunger. Survivors spoke of smoke so thick it choked the sky, and a stench like burning sulfur that clung to skin and sails for days. The Byzantines guarded their weapon with obsessive secrecy, so much so that when enemies captured siphons, they couldn't replicate the mixture. Emperors decreed its formula a state secret, with legends claiming the knowledge was split among trusted families, ensuring no single traitor could betray it entirely. Modern attempts to reconstruct Greek fire have hinted at its complexity. Lab experiments combining crude oil, pine resin, and calcium oxide produce a flammable gel eerily similar to descriptions, but none match the historical accounts of its water-resistant fury. The closest parallel might be modern napalm, yet even that falls short of the Byzantines' mastery. Beyond its brutality, Greek fire represents a watershed in military innovation. For 7 centuries, it turned Constantinople into an impregnable fortress, repelling Arab sieges and Viking raids alike. But its legacy isn't just about destruction, it's about the power of guarded knowledge. In an age before patents or copyrights, the Byzantines proved that sometimes the most formidable weapon isn't just what you create, but how fiercely you protect the mystery of its making. In the land of earthquakes, where the ground trembles like a living thing, Japan's ancient pagodas stand as silent masters of survival. While modern skyscrapers rely on steel skeletons and hydraulic dampers, these towering wooden structures have weathered over a millennium of tremors with a secret hiding in plain sight. Their central pillar, or shinbashira, doesn't actually hold them up. Instead, it hangs like a pendulum inside the pagoda's hollow core, swaying gently to counteract the Earth's violent shakes. This counterintuitive design is a stroke of genius. Each floor of the pagoda is built as an independent wooden box, stacked loosely atop the next like a set of nested cups. The joints between floors are deliberately flexible, allowing the structure to move in a rhythmic dance during quakes. But here's where the shinbashira works its magic. As the pagoda sways, the heavy central pillar swings in the opposite direction, acting like a giant counterweight that stabilizes the entire tower. It's not rigidity that keeps these pagodas standing, it's their ability to bend, to flow with the chaos rather than resist it. Modern engineers have only recently caught up to this ancient wisdom. When Tokyo's Skytree was designed, its architects studied pagodas to create a hybrid system combining the shinbashira principle with cutting-edge damping technology. The result, a structure that can withstand earthquakes far beyond what conventional skyscrapers endure. But the pagodas themselves remain the purest expression of this idea. At Horyuji Temple, a 5-story pagoda built in the 7th century has survived countless quakes, including the devastating Great Kanto earthquake of 1923, which flattened much of Tokyo. What's even more remarkable is how these builders achieved such precision without computers or stress simulations. Craftsmen tuned the pagoda's flexibility by adjusting the tightness of wooden brackets and the weight distribution of each floor, creating a harmony between stiffness and movement. Some historians believe they even used wind chimes suspended from the eaves as makeshift seismometers, listening for changes in their rhythm to detect subtle shifts in the building's balance. The lesson here isn't just about architecture, it's about philosophy. While we often equate strength with unyielding solidity, the pagoda teaches us that true resilience lies in adaptability. In a world where earthquakes and storms grow fiercer with climate change, these ancient towers whisper a timeless truth. Sometimes the best way to stand tall is to know when to sway. Carved deep into Malta's golden limestone, the island's ruts stretch like ghostly scars across the landscape, parallel grooves so precise, they look as though some giant clawed creature dragged its fingers through the stone. These aren't random erosion patterns, they're tracks worn inches deep, crossing hills, plunging into the sea, and even scaling vertical cliffs with eerie determination. For centuries, locals assumed they were chariot marks left by ancient Phoenicians. But the truth, these ruts predate the wheel's arrival by millennia, hinting at a lost technology far more fascinating than anyone imagined. The real puzzle lies in their engineering. Each groove maintains a near-identical width, around 14 centimeters, with smooth, U-shaped bottoms that suggest repeated use. Most appear in pairs, spaced just over a meter apart, as if designed for some standardized vehicle. But here's what defies logic. They crisscross the islands for hundreds of kilometers, some converging at mysterious nodes that resemble prehistoric roundabouts. One theory posits they were part of a megalithic transit system, with sleds or rollers hauling massive stone blocks for temples like Haga Kim. Experiments show wooden sleds loaded with limestone boulders could indeed carve similar ruts over time, especially if lubricated with water or olive oil to reduce friction. Yet other clues point to something even more ingenious. Some ruts trace the contours of hills in spirals, channeling rainwater into underground cisterns, a clever irrigation hack in an island with no natural rivers. Others dead end at cliff edges, suggesting they once guided boats being lowered into the water like a Stone Age dry dock, the most compelling evidence. Several ruts align perfectly with the winter solstice sunrise, implying they might have served dual purposes: practical infrastructure and celestial calendar. Modern attempts to decode the ruts reveal just how sophisticated their creators were. Laser scans show subtle banking on curves, preventing cargo from tipping, while some paths incorporate natural limestone dips as primitive shock absorbers. Archaeologists have even found traces of organic residue in the grooves, possibly remnants of lubricants or offerings, but the grandest mystery remains their scale. This wasn't a few trails, it was an island-wide network, requiring coordination and planning that rivaled later Roman roads. What's haunting is realizing how much context has vanished. Unlike Egypt's pyramids or Rome's aqueducts, Malta's cart ruts left no blueprints, no oral histories, just silent stones waiting to be read. Were they the Bronze Age equivalent of railroads, a sacred processional route, or a hydrological lifeline? Perhaps all three. The ruts defy simple explanations, reminding us that ancient innovation rarely fits into neat categories. While we marvel at their precision, they whisper a humbling truth. Some secrets aren't lost, they're just waiting for us to ask the right questions. Hidden beneath the rugged highlands of Ethiopia, The rock-hewn churches of Lalibela rise like miracles from the earth, except they weren't built up, they were carved down. Imagine standing on a solid block of volcanic rock, chisel in hand, and being told to sculpt an entire cathedral into the ground without collapsing the surrounding stone. That's exactly what 12th century craftsmen achieved, turning a single mass of rock into 11 interconnected churches, complete with windows, columns, and drainage systems, all by removing what wasn't part of the design. The sheer audacity of this approach defies modern logic. Unlike traditional construction, where materials are assembled piece by piece, Lalibela's builders worked in reverse, chiseling away the negative space to reveal the structure within. Starting at the top, they carved downward, layer by layer, shaping exteriors first before hollowing out intricate interiors. One misjudged strike could have weakened a critical load-bearing wall or collapsed a vaulted ceiling. Yet somehow, without laser measurements or computer models, they maintained perfect proportions, leaving behind pillars so delicate they seem to defy gravity and staircases that spiral into shadowy crypts. But the real genius lies in what you don't see. These churches weren't just carved, they were engineered. Hidden channels cut into the stone divert rainwater away from the sanctuaries, while ventilation shafts regulate humidity to preserve delicate frescoes. Some structures even feature blind arches, decorative elements that appear structural but actually redistribute weight to prevent cracks. And then there's Bayat Georgis, the iconic cross-shaped church, its roof perfectly aligned with the contours of the original rock shelf, blending artistry with geology. Legend says angels helped with the work, completing some churches overnight. The truth is almost as astonishing. Scholars believe builders used simple tools, iron chisels, wooden wedges, and possibly fire to fracture stubborn sections, but their true secret was patience. This wasn't a project measured in months, but in generations. Oral traditions suggest workers rotated in shifts, their knowledge passed down like sacred texts, each team refining the vision of the last. What's humbling is realizing how little we understand about their methods. Modern attempts to replicate even small sections of Lalibela's churches reveal just how precise the original work was. The walls aren't just flat, they're subtly curved to distribute stress, a technique that's kept them standing through earthquakes and erosion, and those intricate carvings. They follow geometric patterns found in nature, suggesting the builders didn't just cut stone. They listened to it, working with the rock's natural grain like sculptors collaborating with their material. Today, as drones map the site and 3D scans reveal hidden chambers, Lalibela's churches whisper a paradox. Sometimes, the most monumental achievements come not from adding to the world, but from revealing what was already there. While we marvel at skyscrapers that scrape the sky, these subterranean cathedrals remind us that true mastery isn't about defying nature, it's about uncovering the beauty hidden within it. Perched high in the alcoves of Mesa Verde, the Cliff Palace wasn't just a dwelling, it was a fortress disguised as a home. The ancestral Pueblones who carved this city into the cliffs understood something profound. The best defense isn't always walls and weapons, sometimes it's the land itself. Every aspect of their architecture, from the dizzying height of their settlements to the labyrinth of tunnels connecting rooms, served a dual purpose: shelter and security. Take the entryways. What looks like a simple doorway at first glance was actually a carefully calculated choke point. Many passages were deliberately narrow, forcing intruders to enter single file, while defenders could rain down arrows or stones from hidden vantage points above. Some tunnels twisted at sharp angles, preventing outsiders from seeing what lay beyond while giving residents time to react. And then there were the defensive tunnels, secret routes carved behind walls or under floors, allowing families to escape or regroup unseen during an attack. But the real stroke of genius was the location. Built beneath massive sandstone overhangs, the Cliff Palace enjoyed natural fortifications no human hands could replicate. The rock ceilings shielded the village from harsh weather, yes, but they also made it nearly impossible to attack from above. Enemies would have to scale sheer cliffs just to reach the dwellings, exposing themselves to defenders who could drop boulders or pour boiling liquid from concealed openings. Even the village's water supply was tucked deep within the complex, protected by winding passages that invaders couldn't navigate under pressure. Modern archaeologists have found evidence that these defenses weren't theoretical. Burn marks on some walls suggest attempted invasions, yet the settlement shows no signs of ever being fully breached. The Pueblones didn't just build for peace, they prepared for war, turning their homes into de facto castles without a single moat or drawbridge. What's striking is how seamlessly these defensive features blended into daily life. Storage rooms doubled as fallback positions, while plazas could be sealed off into defensive courtyards. Even the village lay out clusters of homes connected by hidden passages, created a communal early warning system. If one family spotted danger, a series of coded knocks or whispers could alert the entire community in moments. Today, as we marvel at the Cliff Palace's beauty, it's easy to miss the quiet brilliance of its design. This wasn't just architecture, it was psychology. By making their home look inaccessible, the Pueblones deterred attacks before they began. Their greatest weapon wasn't stone or arrow. It was the unnerving certainty that every step an enemy took into that labyrinth could be their last. While medieval Europe built towering castles to proclaim their strength, Mesa Verde's people whispered a subtler truth. Sometimes the safest place isn't the most imposing, it's the one no one can find. Standing on the banks of the Nile, workers faced an impossible task: how to move a needle-shaped mountain. The Egyptian obelisks weren't just tall, they were titanic, some weighing as much as 400 tons, the equivalent of 200 cars, carved from a single block of red granite. Yet these slender giants traveled hundreds of miles from quarries to temples, gliding across sand and river as if by magic. The secret wasn't supernatural, it was a masterclass in applied physics and teamwork. Techniques so advanced they'd stump modern engineers if they tried to replicate them with period tools. Take Cleopatra's Needle, now standing in London's Thames Embankment. Originally hewn in Heliopolis around 1450 BCE, this 220-ton monolith made a journey that would humble today's heavy machinery. Hieroglyphs and tomb paintings reveal the first stroke of genius: wooden sleds. But these weren't simple platforms, they were engineered systems. Workers laid parallel tracks of smooth timber, greased with animal fat, while teams hauled the obelisk forward with ropes woven from papyrus and palm fiber. Then came the real hack. As the sled inched forward, laborers poured water onto the tracks, turning the grease into a slick slurry that reduced friction by up to 50%. It was an ancient version of the lubricants we use in modern machinery, harnessing liquid to conquer gravity. But how did they load these colossi onto barges without cranes? Here, the Egyptians turned the Nile itself into a tool. Archaeologists believe they dug canals right up to the quarry, then floated empty barges beneath submerged obelisks. By carefully controlling the water level, filling and draining ballast tanks made of reeds, they could raise or lower the barge until the stone rolled perfectly into place. It was a delicate dance of buoyancy and balance, where one wrong move could sink the vessel or snap the ropes. Once afloat, the real test began. Moving an obelisk-laden barge downstream required more than muscle, it demanded an understanding of hydrodynamics. Paintings show multiple escort boats positioned at precise angles to stabilize the cargo, while teams onshore used tow ropes to steer clear of sandbanks. Some obelisks, like those destined for Karnak, traveled over 400 miles this way, surviving rapids and shifting currents. What's staggering is the precision of their logistics. At Luxor, an unfinished obelisk still lies in the quarry, revealing how workers undercut the stone's base while it was still attached to bedrock, then inserted wooden wedges. By soaking these wedges, the expanding wood created enough pressure to cleanly fracture the granite along natural crystal lines, a technique later adopted by Renaissance sculptors. The legacy of these feats isn't just in the obelisks that still pierce the skies of Rome and New York. It's in the realization that ancient engineers didn't just rely on brute force. They observed, experimented, and turned natural forces into allies. While we use hydraulics and diesel engines, they mastered the art of making water, wood, and rope do the impossible. Every obelisk that still stands today is more than a monument to pharaohs. It's a testament to the quiet genius of the nameless workers who understood that true strength lies not in fighting nature, but in bending its rules. At the threshold of ancient Sri Lankan temples, a single step could transport you into an entire cosmology. The moonstone's semicircular slabs of intricately carved stone weren't mere decorations. They were spiritual roadmaps compressing the universe's cycles into a pattern so precise, modern mathematicians still marvel at its symbolism. Picture concentric circles unfolding like ripples in a pond. First a ring of flames, then elephants, lions, horses, and finally lotus petals, each layer whispering a secret about the path to enlightenment. The genius of these moonstones lies in their layered meaning. The outermost band of flickering flames represents desire, the burning distractions of earthly life. Next, the elephants symbolize the weight of earthly burdens, their sturdy forms embodying the physical world's grip. Lions break this chain, roaring with the courage needed to confront inner demons, while horses gallop toward spiritual liberation. At the center, the lotus blooms untouched by the mud below, a promise of purity achieved through this very journey. But here's what's astonishing: the sequence isn't arbitrary. It mirrors the Buddhist concept of samsara, the endless cycle of rebirth, guiding devotees from ignorance to awakening with every step they take across the stone. Craftsmen didn't just chisel these motifs, they encoded physics into art. The moonstone's curvature matches the lunar cycle, its polished surface reflecting moonlight during festivals to illuminate sacred texts. Some temple designs position the stone so the sun's rays align with specific carvings during solstices, turning it into a solar calendar, and the material itself, often made of metamorphic rock like granitic gneiss, was chosen for its durability, ensuring the teachings would outlast empires. Modern researchers using 3D imaging have discovered even subtler details. The spacing between animal bands follows the Fibonacci sequence, a mathematical pattern found in nature's growth spirals, linking human spirituality to cosmic order. Even the stone's placement was strategic. Positioned at transitions between mundane and sacred spaces, they forced visitors to pause and contemplate before entering, blending architecture with psychology. What's haunting is realizing how much we've lost in translation. Contemporary buildings often prioritize function over symbolism, but these moonstones remind us that spaces can speak. They challenge architects to ask, what if every doorway, every floor tile could tell a story? While we plaster walls with inspirational quotes, the ancients carved wisdom into the ground itself, ensuring every footfall was a meditation. Beneath the scorching sands of Morocco's deserts, a hidden network of veins kept civilization alive, not with brute force but with the quiet precision of gravity. The Qattara tunnels weren't just irrigation channels, they were subterranean symphonies of hydrological engineering, stretching for miles like underground root systems feeding an oasis. While modern farms rely on electric pumps guzzling energy, these ancient builders turned the desert's own slopes into a passive water delivery system that ran for centuries without a single moving part. The brilliance began at the source. Workers dug vertical shafts sometimes over 100 feet deep until they struck the water table, then connected them with gently sloping tunnels that let gravity do the rest. But here's the catch: the gradient had to be perfect, too steep, and the water would rush through, eroding the walls; too shallow, and it would stagnate. Using nothing but simple levels and generations of observational knowledge, they calibrated each segment to a slope of about 1 meter per kilometer, a grade so slight it's hard to detect without instruments. Maintenance was where the Katharas revealed their true genius. Each village assigned a mukani, a watermaster who inspected the tunnels monthly, clearing silt with hand tools and reinforcing walls with palm fiber ropes. The vertical shafts doubled as access points and ventilation chimneys, creating airflow that prevented mold and algae buildup, a self-regulating system disguised as humble holes in the ground. Some Katharas even featured sedimentation chambers where particles would settle before the water entered the main channel, a primitive but effective filtration hack. What's astonishing is how these tunnels transformed the landscape. In the Tafilalt Oasis, a single Kathara system supported date palms, barley fields, and even public baths across 30 square miles of otherwise barren land. Unlike modern dams that disrupt ecosystems, Katharas worked with the aquifer, tapping only what percolated naturally to avoid depletion. During droughts, the tunnels would run dry, but that wasn't a flaw. It was a built-in warning system, forcing farmers to pause until groundwater recovered. Today, as Morocco's water tables plummet from overpumping, some villages are reviving these ancient channels. Scientists mapping them with ground-penetrating radar have found networks up to 600 years old still holding structural integrity, proof that sustainability isn't a modern invention, but a forgotten art. The Katharas whisper a lesson we're desperate to relearn. Sometimes the most advanced solution isn't about power. It's about patience, observation, and letting nature do the heavy lifting. On the wind-whipped slopes of Easter Island, the Moai statues stand like silent giants frozen mid-stride, their massive stone faces turned inland as if caught in the act of walking toward their posts. For centuries, their journey baffled archaeologists. How could a civilization without wheels or draft animals transport 80-ton basalt monoliths across miles of rugged terrain? The answer turned out to be as elegant as it was unexpected. The Rapa Nui people didn't drag their statues, they made them walk. Recent experiments by researchers Terry Hunt and Carl Lipo turned this theory from folklore into fact. Using a life-sized concrete replica and 3 teams of rope pullers, they demonstrated how slight tilting motions could rock a Moai forward in a staggering upright shuffle. With each gentle sway, the statue's curved base allowed it to pivot slightly forward, while teams on alternating sides kept it balanced, a bit like moving a refrigerator by tipping it corner to corner. What seemed like magic was really physics in its purest form. The Moai's own weight and shape became the engine of its movement, but here's where the ingenuity deepens. This method wasn't just clever, it was resource efficient. Unlike log rolling techniques that would have deforested the island faster, the walking approach required only strong ropes woven from hibiscus bark and coordinated teamwork. Oral traditions passed down by Rapa Nui elders suddenly made sense. Stories of statues, guided by Mana, likely described the rhythmic chants and pulls that kept the Moai in motion. Even the island's roads, previously assumed to be ceremonial, showed where patterns consistent with side-to-side rocking rather than linear dragging. the implications shatter old myths. No extraterrestrial intervention, no lost super technology, just human ingenuity honed through generations of trial and error. Modern engineers calculating the forces involved found that as few as 18 people could move a mid-sized moe at a pace of several hundred feet per day, turning a logistical nightmare into a manageable task. And the statue's distinctive design, that wasn't just artistic flair. The elongated torsos and sloped bases acted as natural counterweights, preventing catastrophic falls during transit. What's haunting is the subtle brilliance behind this method. The Rapa Nui didn't fight the island's challenges, they danced with them. Where others might see only the burden of moving stone, they saw opportunity in balance, rhythm, and collective effort. Today, as we grapple with sustainability crises, their silent stone walkers offer a whisper from the past. Sometimes the most advanced solution isn't about forcing nature into submission, but finding the groove in its rhythm. From self-healing concrete that outlasts empires to temples that sing with the voices of sacred birds, these 22 ancient architectural hacks reveal something profound. Our ancestors didn't just build, they listened. They listened to the whispers of stone, the rhythm of the stars, the pulse of wind and water, turning limitations into strokes of genius. And here's the humbling truth. While we've traded chisels for cranes and ropes for steel cables, we haven't necessarily surpassed their creativity. We've just changed the tools. Take a moment to consider what these civilizations achieved without blueprints or bulldozers. The Inca didn't need mortar because they understood stone like a language. The Romans didn't fight cracks in their concrete, they designed them to heal. The Aztecs didn't drain swamps, they floated gardens atop them. Every solution was a dialogue with nature, a partnership rather than a conquest. Modern engineering marvels may soar higher or span wider, but do they hold the same promise of endurance? While our skyscrapers rely on replaceable parts and constant maintenance, the Pantheon's dome has needed no repairs in 2,000 years. This isn't just about nostalgia for the past. It's a challenge, a mirror held up to our own practices. In an age of disposable construction and planned obsolescence, these ancient masters whisper a radical question. What if we built like we meant it to last? Not just for decades, but for millennia. Imagine cities where concrete strengthens with time, where buildings dance with earthquakes instead of resisting them, where every structure serves multiple purposes: cooling, filtering, even communicating. The knowledge is there, etched in stone and buried in ruins, waiting for us to rediscover it. And the most exciting part, we're only scratching the surface. For every technique we've decoded, like the Viking Sunstone or the Maya's acoustic temples, there are dozens more still shrouded in mystery. How did the Egyptians achieve such flawless pyramid alignments? What lost formulas made Greek fire burn on water? Each unanswered question is an invitation to keep exploring, to approach the past not as a museum but as a mentor. So tell us, which of these ancient hacks left you in awe? Was it the precision of the Inca's stonework, the foresight of Mohenjo-Daro's sewers, or the sheer audacity of Lalibella's subterranean churches? Drop your thoughts below and let's keep the conversation going. After all, history isn't just a record of what's been done, it's a blueprint for what's still possible. If you enjoyed this journey through the annals of ingenuity, don't forget to subscribe. Who knows what other secrets we'll uncover together? Until next time, keep looking up, down, and all around. The past is everywhere, and its lessons are waiting.